Broadcasting from LA Live, inside the CarMax studios. CarMax, the way car buying should be. It's 710 ESPN Southern California Experience, a public service program highlighting events, causes, charities, and activities in Southern California. Here's the host of the Southern California Experience, LaFern Cusack.
Good morning. This is LaFern Cusack here on 710 ESPN Radio. This is your Southern California Experience with all the great things that are happening here in our community and around the world. Coming up in just a little bit, we're going to be speaking with Howard K. Broden. He is Managing Director, Team Marketing Systems, and founder of SportsAndSocialChange.org. And he's going to tell us all about all sports organizations here in Los Angeles that we can team up with and make a difference in our community. In studio with us, we have William Weinberg. He is a seasoned criminal defense attorney in Orange County and has successfully defended many cases involving the most serious charges ranging from homicides to sexual assault and driving under the influence. And he can be found at WilliamWeinberg.com. And welcome to the show, William.
Thank you. I'm very, very excited to be here.
Now, according to the New York Times, 1 in 5 teens may be child pornographers risking life in prison for crime of taking and distributing naked pictures of themselves. And you're here to tell us about texting, which I heard about maybe over a year ago, and our friend Michael Fiddler, our digital man expert, he came in and I was amazed that he's talking about sexting.
That's right.
And can you tell us exactly what is the legal definition of sexting?
Well, at this point in California, under California law, there is no crime of sexting per se. What there are some laws regarding the distribution of material that people might find to be pornographic.
Which can range from what I find pornographic may not be what you find as pornographic.
That's absolutely correct. The United States Supreme Court back in the 1960s could not find a definition for it either, and the justice who wrote the opinion on it said, I know it when I see it.
And now they're just throwing kids in jail.
Exactly. Well, sexting is a product of the incredible explosive rise of social media in our culture, and it's accessed by teens. So the most common circumstance involving this quote-unquote sexting is a photograph usually taken by the alleged victim and then distributed many, many times by any number of people, boyfriends, ex-boyfriends, things like that.
Oh, my goodness. It's scary.
It really is.
It is, and it's like you just have to use common sense. But like the young kids who, they're in their first relationship and they think this is it, and they trust the person so much and they send it out and it goes all over school. That's
right, and one very, very common scenario is where a girl will take a picture of herself unclothed. She'll send it to her boyfriend. They will then break up, and the boyfriend, in a revenge mode, will then distribute it to as many people on his list as he can, and then it gets redistributed 10 times by all those people who were the initial receivers of it, and then the girl has to do the quote-unquote walk of shame at school.
And according to sexual harassment laws in the workplace, if let's say I received a sexting email or text message, and I forward it to my coworker, I can get fired for that.
Well, you are, in effect, if you look at the law very strictly, you're redistributing the inappropriate message to a third party, and so you could, under California law, potentially be prosecuted.
Now, does it matter if you are over the age of 18, or does it specifically apply to kids that are in regards to the child pornography aspect?
There are basically two sets of laws that deal, one with minors and one with adults, and they kind of serve two different purposes. But it's important for listeners to understand that this is a very, very new area of the law, and it has been very unevenly applied by prosecutors around the country, and most of them are still kind of scratching their heads saying, is this a good fit? as a form of prosecution for us to pursue criminal prosecutions of people doing this.
It's really amazing. How do you stop your children from doing this?
Right. I know. And this is, of course, if parents lose control of their kids and their habits, then they run the risk of having their kids get stuck in situations like this.
Now, how can we educate our youth about these laws? And again, they change from week to week when some new technology comes out. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, the sexting issue is now just a product of the fact that you can send photos over text message format. So what parents can do, first of all, they can do one of two things. They can try to scare their kids into not doing it by telling them horror stories about kids who've been prosecuted or shamed, or they can just talk to their children very honestly and frankly about self-respect and not putting themselves in situations that they may regret, by putting their photos and stuff out there.
Right, and everybody does regret it when it happens. Yes. Oh my goodness. I don't know if you're familiar with I believe it's the 3 boys that have just been prosecuted for sending a sexting photo of one of the girlfriends.
Right.
And they have been prosecuted and possibly having jail time.
Yeah. Now, my primary practice is in Orange County. I handle cases all over Southern California, but Orange County has not really seen any of this type of prosecution. San Bernardino, and that may be the case you're referring to, has done 9 prosecutions involving quote-unquote sexting. I just want to reemphasize there's no specific law dealing with sexting, but kind of groups of laws that seem to apply to those facts. 4 boys from Yucaipa High School were cited to appear in juvenile court after redistributing photos of a 15-year-old girl, and it was, as we spoke of earlier, she had sent the photograph to her boyfriend. Boyfriend thought it would be incredibly funny to send this thing out, and it got redistributed, and a lot of very hurt feelings and sorrow.
Oh, my goodness. It definitely is, and you definitely regret it, especially, if you have a child that's doing it, and it's just all fun and games.
Right.
Until the cops come a-knocking.
Exactly.
If you're just tuning in with us, this is 710 ESPN. I'm LaFern Cusack, and we're speaking with William Weinberg, criminal defense attorney. William, what is your website if people want to go there and help with your services?
Sure. It's www.williamweinberg.com. Weinberg is Weinberg.
And we're talking about sexting, which is sending porn over your text phone or your phone. Is that the specific definition of it?
The best definition I could offer is transmitting or retransmitting nude images or what would be considered obscene images over through text messages, either by the original sender or by a redistribution.
Now, what have you professionally encountered in these sexting laws?
What I'm seeing, and I've seen over the last year, is a lot of parents calling me, very, very panicked, very worried. These are typically situations where the law has not gotten involved. The schools maybe have seen it and have not decided to take it to the next level by reporting it to law enforcement. But parents are calling me saying, what do I do? And I've given them a couple of pieces of advice, and I would say this is probably a good starting point. First, take away the electronic device and stop the flow of information right away. Second, sit down with your child and have that conversation that you probably haven't had yet, and say, look, your image is yours to control, whether you're doing it in person or you're doing it over the internet or over text messaging. Show some self-respect. Talk to your friends about this and make sure everybody's kind of on the same page about sharing information like this. But the first step you've got to take is taking away the phone.
Oh.
And that's tough.
It is tough. That can be like death for a teenage child,
Oh, it really is. And kids younger and younger are getting a hold of cell phones now, and their parents think it's a security device. And it's really not. It's a door that opens up to a much wider world that kids don't understand.
Right. But there's also ways that parents can monitor the phone and see what the kids are sending out and what they're receiving.
That's true. Parents are reluctant to do that because they think that they're violating their children's right to privacy. And, the fact is, children really don't have the right to privacy, and the parents need to establish that understanding right up front. Take your children's phone periodically and examine it. Look and see what's coming in, see what's going out, and talk to your kids about it.
Right. And be open and honest. And, everyone's like, well, I want my child to trust me. I want, us to have this respect. And if they respect me, I know they won't be doing anything wrong. But when another kid comes in the situation and influences your child to do something else, then, sometimes things are up in the air.
That's right. One suggestion that I gave a parent, a mother who had called me a few months ago was, why don't you get your daughter and her friends together in your living room? Sit down with them and talk about this. Print out some stuff from the internet. Tell them that this is a much wider phenomenon and that a lot of people are getting their lives torn apart by this stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Just because of that one text that went viral. Now, do you know of any resources that parents can go to about these issues?
There's one website called Connect Safely. That's ConnectSafely.com. There's a lot of tips for parents and teens on that website. I do want to caution parents if they're considering going further, if they're frustrated and they think that they need help, to talk to a child psychologist rather than talking to the police. Under most circumstances, there's a tremendous risk that you're going to open up a can of worms with your child and their reputation by calling the police.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And that can, again, lead to your child going to juvenile hall.
That's correct. And, there's a lot of unintended consequences in juvenile hall with probation, and social services can get involved, and all of a sudden a parent is now being considered perhaps an unfit parent because they didn't exercise control over their child, and
right.
That would be a bad thing.
Besides sexting, what are other crimes related to information technology that has risen that we can foresee an incident or...
Well, this goes back to what we talked about earlier about social media. Facebook is an explosive avenue in social media. It's basically the 800-pound gorilla, and kids are on it now. Everybody's got these Facebook pages. Used to be MySpace, but that seems to have been sort of left in the dust by Facebook. But kids are having basically unfettered control over these sites, posting pictures. And those are going out. I mean, and I think a lot of people don't understand how to limit your privacy on Facebook.
I don't know. And I mean, they've changed it so many times. I'm just confused. So I say, you know what? Whatever I post, I just assume that everyone is going to see it. Whatever you do online, everyone is going to see it.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's sort of known as the billboard principle. If you type it, if you speak it, if you post it, just think of it going onto a billboard.
It's
frightening, isn't it?
It is really frightening, but it's, again, common sense. But common sense is not common. Do you think these laws will hold up in regards to sexting and online media?
I think that the prosecutors, if they're exercising, restraint, they're going to try to find the cases that reflect a form of kind of malice in the redistribution, simply beyond an ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend deciding to get revenge. They might look at things that have collateral consequences like extortion. If somebody tries to extort something, either in the form of money or in the form of sex out of the victim after gaining control of an image, those things will be prosecuted very, very strongly, I would expect. My hope is that this is a wake-up call to parents to exercise control. I mean, after all, when a child is under 18 and they're living in your home, it should be a velvet dictatorship. It really ought to be. And the parents should say, while I respect your independence, it cannot be an unfettered independence. We've got to know what you're doing and with whom, and so, hand over the phone. Let's talk about it. Right?
You're under my roof
exactly.
until you pay your bills and your rent.
I know. It's not a popularity contest if you're doing it right.
Right. And then, I mean, if you have that open communication, I'm sure your child will still respect you and know that they have boundaries and know when they are crossing it.
Well, I think the unfortunate part of parenting is that you don't get the immediate positive feedback from your child.
Right.
They may respect you on some level, but they're going to be extremely ticked off that you've demanded access to their, precious electronic devices.
Right.
But the point is, the tail can't wag the dog, and this will start and it will end in the living room.
What are your other colleagues saying about sexting and the sexting laws?
Well, criminal attorneys, whether they're prosecutors or defense attorneys, have a fairly dark streak of humor. So I can't really say on the air some of the things that have been said to me. But, most of my colleagues, kind of the more veteran defense attorneys, say, why isn't this stuff being handled in the home? Why is this now in the public sphere? Why can't parents and teachers get together and form a plan? Mm-hmm. And I think this is a product of parents wanting to be popular and not knowing how to handle their children.
Wanting to be their buddy.
Exactly. We've all heard of the parents who said, well, drink at our house.
Oh, my goodness.
Because that way I'll know what you're doing, which is just, turning logic on its ear.
Right, which was it Orange County? The former sheriff of Orange County, he let his son drink in the house, and then it ended up in...
Oh, the Heidel case.
Yes.
Yeah, that is a complete abandonment of parenting, to not know that your child is getting into a situation like that.
I also think it's about accountability. Your child has to know also, they have to be accountable for their actions, just as we as adults have to be accountable for our actions. To display that, to have your kids do the same, I don't think we can ask for anything less.
No, that's absolutely true. And, one of the fundamental principles I learned growing up and when I became a parent was, your job is to raise a savage into a citizen. So, to kind of coin a phrase, but the idea is that you give successive levels of freedom to your children based upon their earning it.
Right.
And there's a lot of trust that's embedded in that, but you always have to be at that point where you can say, let's stop, let's regroup, and let's talk about it. So when it comes to sexting, if this issue comes up for parents, first of all, bring your child into it and say to them, in this conversation, I'm not upset with you. I don't think you did anything wrong morally. I think there's some confusion going on, and I think we need to talk about what messages you're sending, particularly to young women. There's so much negative media. Mm-hmm. So many messages are being sent to young girls now, preteens, about basically sexualizing them.
Right.
And this is a terrible, terrible development of our culture. And it's a building block to the sexting stuff.
Oh my goodness. If someone out there is maybe going through an issue like this with their kids or similar situations and they need legal advice, who should they contact? You, besides you.
Well, besides me, William Weinberg, they should if the police get involved, I think it's extremely important for parents to understand their child's Fifth Amendment rights. And they should say to their children, look, let's talk, let's get some legal advice from a qualified criminal defense attorney, someone who's seen this issue, has familiarity with the laws surrounding it, and talk about what our options are. Yeah. And try not to immediately race to the courthouse to get this thing resolved.
Right, most definitely. William Weinberg, what is your website again if people want advice and see all the great things that you do in Orange County?
Thank you. It's www.williamweinberg.com. That's WEINBERG. And I have 2 blogs as well, one dealing with general criminal questions, others dealing with DUI-related issues as well.
Oh, my gosh. I got to have you back on to talk about that because that's huge. It's huge. So you must come back.
I would love to.
All right. William Weinberg, criminal defense attorney, attorney at law. Again, WilliamWeinberg.com. It's such a pleasure to have you on. Please check your kids' text messages and let them know what is right and what is wrong when they're sending text messages out. Thank you again, William.
Thank you.
I'm LaFern Cusack. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to be speaking with Howard K. Brodwin. He's Managing Director of Team Marketing Systems and founder of Sports and Social Change here on the Southern California Experience, 710 ESPN.